afternoon. Today we are going to talk about the technological progress and its relation with international trade. Technological progress is defined here as a phenomena wherein the firm uses less amount of labor and capital to produce the same level of output. Now, when a firm uses less labor and capital, it means that the marginal productivities of capital and labor increases. Now, if the increase in marginal productivity of labor is equivalent to the increase in marginal productivity of capital, then you define this as the Hicks neutral technological progress. If the increase in marginal productivity of capital is greater than the increase in marginal productivity of labor, then you call this as capital using technological progress or capital deepening technological progress. If the marginal productivity of labor increases at an amount greater than the increase in the marginal productivity of capital, then you call this technological progress as labor using technological progress. So, I will try to model this technological progress or by defining all the three different types of technological progress: Hicks neutral technological progress, labor using technological progress, capital using technological progress. So, you have omega, which is the W by R ratio. This is a function of the capital labor ratio and technology. This is the capital labor ratio. T is the technological progress. And so, you have X the marginal productivities all greater than 0, where Ft is del x del t greater than 0. Now, this omega is a function of k and t, because we saw that if the capital labor ratio changes, then it would mean changes in the relative wage rates, and if technological progress happens, then it would lead to less amount of use of labor and capital, leading to increase in the marginal productivities of capital and labor, and therefore having an impact on omega. Omega is W by R, and we saw at equilibrium omega is equal to Fl by Fk, where Fl is the marginal productivity of labor and Fk is the marginal productivity of capital. So, the total change equation is d omega del omega del k dk plus del omega del t dt. This is equal to So, this is omega star now. This term can be written as del W by del K into K by W. Now, please recall that the elasticity of substitution is dk by d omega into omega by k. So, this term would be 1 by sigma and k star, this is the proportionate change in the capital labor ratio, plus 1 by omega del W del T dt. So, further this is 1 by sigma k star plus, now call this as alpha. Now, if alpha is equal to 0, this is called the Hicks neutral technological progress. If lambda is greater than 0, then you have the labor using, which is the capital saving if lambda is less than 0, you have the capital using labor saving now see, remember this omega is equal to marginal productivity of labor by marginal productivity of capital. So, if the increase in marginal productivity of labor is equal to the increase in marginal productivity of capital, there will be no change in omega. When there is no change in omega, del omega del T would be equal to 0. So, alpha is equal to 0, this is called the Hicks neutral technological progress. Inherent in this is that the increase in FL is equal to the increase in FK. As a result, W by R ratio or omega remains constant. This is Hicks neutral technological progress. Labor using technological progress means that the increase in FL is greater than the increase in FK. This implies that W by R ratio goes up, which is equal to omega going up. If omega goes up, del W by del T, you see this to be greater than 0. So, you have labor using technological progress. If the increase in Fk is greater than the increase in Fl, this would imply W by R ratio going down or omega going down. This is called the capital using technological progress, where del W by del T would be this, you would see that alpha would be less than equal to 0. So, this is how you define technological progress in trade and microeconomics. Now, you can always make a diagram if this is labor, this is K, this is an isocont, you have to draw a straight line from the origin, implying that the capital labor ratio remains the same, because remember, when you differentiate omega with respect to t, you keep the capital labor ratio constant. So, if you see an increase Now, you can see the distinction between labor using, capital using, and Hicks neutral technological progress. In the Hicks neutral technological progress, at the same capital labor ratio, this remains same, the slope remains the same. So, technological progress is taking place, that is, with less number of capital and labor, you are producing the same level of output. This output remains the same. This is x, 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 this is x. So, now with less number of capital and labor, you are producing the same level of output. But Hicks neutral technological progress is that when you use less number of capital and labor, marginal productivity increase is the same for capital and labor. So, increase in FL is equal to increase in FK, W by R ratio remains the same. You can see that you have these parallels are isocont, W by R ratio remains the same. If the W by R ratio goes down, it is called the capital using technological progress with the same capital labor ratio. If the W by R ratio goes up, it is called the labor using technological progress or the capital saving technological progress. You can see here that the slope increases. So, increase in MPL is greater than the increase in MPK. So, that is how you define the technological progress. Now, there is another way to define technological progress. Here you had made an assumption when you were defining this alpha term that there is no change in the capital labor ratio, because the term that we got here assumes that the capital labor ratio remains the same. Now, let us define technological progress in another way, wherein you write capital labor ratio as a function of omega and technology. So, if the W by R ratio, which is omega, if that changes, that tends to change the capital labor ratio, and technological progress also tends to have an impact on the capital labor ratio, keeping the W by R ratio same. So, again the total change in K is equal to del K by del omega d omega plus del K del T dt. Now, divide by K throughout. So, this becomes K star. Now, this is del K del omega d omega K, you can write it as omega into omega plus 1 by K del K del T dt. So, this implies K star to be equal to sigma elasticity of substitution, which is del K del W Wk sigma omega star plus beta. We call beta to be this term. Now, if beta is equal to 0, it is called the Hicks neutral technological progress. If beta is greater than 0, then it is called the capital using or the labor saving technological progress. In this case, K by L ratio increases at same omega, and here if B is less than 0, you have the labor using technological progress. In here the capital labor ratio declines at same omega. Now, if you have to show it through the figure, again you have capital and labor, you have the isocont x. Technological progress means that you can produce x with less number of capital, with less capital and less labor. So, then W by R ratio is the same. The only difference is that the capital labor ratio goes up. At point B, it is K by L is greater than K by L at point A. This is called the capital using technological progress. Capital saving technological progress, you will see K L here the capital labor ratio goes down. Labor using means labor deepening process, more of labor is used, so K by L ratio remains the same. What is to be noticed is that this W by R ratio remains the same. In the earlier diagram we had assumed K to be same. Here we are assuming that omega W by R ratio remains the same. So, labor using means K by L ratio goes down, and then the Higgs neutral technological progress the K by L ratio remains the same at same W by R. So, you can define technological progress when the relative wage rates are same, and you can define technological progress when the capital labor ratio remains the same. But the distinction is that there are three types of technological progress which are defined in the literature, which is Higgs neutral, labor using, the other is the capital using. Now, given this, given our understanding of the technological progress, now we need to see how technological progress have an impact on international trade. So, for this I would make a diagram showing the production possibility frontier of a country, and then we will introduce technological progress in the model. So, let us assume that there are two commodities, one is wheat, the other is cloth. Wheat production is little capital intensive, this is an assumption, while cloth production is labor intensive. There are two countries, one is the United Kingdom, the other is the United States. UK has a comparative advantage in production of cloth, while US has a comparative advantage production of wheat. UK is labor rich, US is capital rich. So, US is capital rich, UK is labor rich. This is the situation before trade taking place, before technological progress taking place. So, I will draw the PPF, this is the PPF. So, this country is say at point A at Turkey, it is exporting this much of cloth, importing this much of wheat, is exporting this much of cloth, importing this much of wheat, it's reached a point like B, it's on the higher indifference curve than the point at autarky. So with trade, if it trades, then it reaches a point like B. Now assume that technological progress takes place. Now there can be three types of technological progress. One can be capital using technological progress, other can be labor using technological progress, the third can be Hicks neutral technological progress. What is the feature of these three? Hicks neutral technological progress, the increase in marginal productivity of labor is equal to the increase in marginal productivity of capital. So the W by R ratio remains the same, or you can say that the capital labor ratio remains the same at the same W by R. You have labor using technological progress defined in two ways: capital labor ratio declines at same W by R, or the increase in MPL is greater than the increase in MPK. So as a result, W by R ratio increases at the same capital labor ratio. Capital using technological progress means capital labor ratio increases, there is capital deepening, or the W by R ratio goes down because the increase in MPK is greater than the increase in MPL. This is a situation of trade taking place between US and UK. US has a comparative advantage in production of wheat, so it would export wheat. UK has a comparative advantage in production of cloth, so UK would export cloth. This is the depiction of such trade taking place in the United Kingdom, UK exporting this much of cloth, importing this much of wheat. Now let us assume that something happens, that something is technological progress. Technological progress is labor using technological progress. Labor using technological progress. Now what it would do is that it would give a fillip to the production of the labor intensive product, which is cloth. So see what happens with labor using technological progress. There is a shift of the production possibility frontier, but the shape now looks like this, wherein you would see that this shape is more oriented towards the production of cloth. Reason being that this is labor using technological progress, L by K ratio has gone up, the marginal productivity of labor is greater than the marginal productivity of capital, W by R ratio goes up. As a result, this will be the shape of the PPF of the United Kingdom. So this is the old PPF, this is the new PPF with labor using technological progress. Now see how prices get affected. With this, if you had assumed the same relative wage rates, the relative prices, the slope is minus price of cloth by price of wheat. If after the technological progress you would have assumed the same relative prices, then you would have exported this much of cloth, imported this much of wheat, and you would have reached a point like this. So you would have moved from A dash to B dash. But if this needs to happen, that means if you need to export more of cloth and more of wheat, that is only possible if the price of cloth by price of wheat goes down. then only UK will be able to export more cloth for importing more wheat. So, this is the result which is not possible if you assume that labor using technological progress has taken place and the PPF has shifted to the right and there is more production of cloth, it would lead to a decline in price of cloth. So, the terms of trade goes down, then only it is possible for UK to export more of cloth and import more of wheat. So, then the final terms of trade, this is the final terms of trade, this is the final terms of trade after labor using technological progress. Please recall that when you are talking of the production possibility frontier, if you move from left to right, the slope of the PPF goes up. So, here you see a fall in the terms of trade if there is a labor using technological progress. So, UK being labor rich saw technological progress taking place of the type which is labor deepening, leading to a fall in the terms of trade. Remember, the terms of trade, it is price of exports by price of imports. The export good is the cloth, imported good for the United Kingdom is the wheat. So, terms of trade fall for the UK, the terms of trade increases for the US. So, think in a real situation in an economy like India, if it is labor rich and if you see a technological progress happening in of the type which is labor deepening, it would tend to depress the prices of the goods in which you have a comparative advantage. Okay. So, sometimes there is a talk that the growth should be oriented towards the sector in which you do not have a comparative advantage. Now, we will see what happens if there is a technological progress taking place which is of the type capital deepening, capital using, because in this case the terms of trade have gone down. Now, you have a capital using or deepening you have a capital using or deepening technological progress. So, again you have cloth, you have wheat, you have the old PPF of United Kingdom, PPF of UK, you are here at point A exporting this much of cloth, importing this much of say you are here exporting this much of cloth, importing this much of wheat. This is the trade situation before technological progress taking place. Now, the technological progress takes place, but it is now capital using technological progress. Capital using technological progress means that the increase in MPK is greater than the increase in MPL, or the capital labor ratio increases at the same relative wage rates. whatever it be, the new PPF will be more tilted towards the production of wheat, reason being that it is a capital using technological progress. More capital is used. So, when more capital is used, more wheat will be produced, because wheat is a capital intensive product. Now, this is UK. Technological progress takes place leading to an increase in the commodity in which it does not have a comparative advantage. Okay. So, this is the new PPF. So, at the same relative prices, you are exporting this much, you are importing this much. You are exporting less of cloth, importing less of wheat. Now, this is only possible if the terms of trade goes up. So, with the capital using technological progress, you would see that the final production would be here. This is the new slope. Country would export more of cloth, less of cloth and less of wheat, because the relative prices, the terms of trade have improved for the United Kingdom. So, you see that with an increase, with the capital using technological progress, the terms of trade for the United Kingdom improves, because that is the only way that UK can export less of cloth and import less of wheat from the United States. So, then what are the policy implications? That if the technological progress takes place such that the commodity in which the country does not have a comparative advantage gets affected, then you will see an improvement in the terms of trade. But if technological progress takes place in the commodity if the technological progress takes place such that the commodity in which you have a comparative advantage gets affected, you will see a fall in terms of trade. So, there is a very famous theory proposed by Professor Jagdish Bhagwati about the immiscerizing growth. Immiscerizing growth. This is a term which was coined by Professor Bhagwati the famous international economist of the Indian origin, working in the US at the Harvard. Now, what he was talking about was something similar to what we had discussed in this diagram. So, if the growth happens in the economy, but it is more tilted towards the product in which you have a comparative advantage, you would see at the end that the terms of trade would fall for that particular commodity. So, then point is that the growth should be such that it should bring equal returns for everyone, the terms of trade should improve. So, then there was an argument that the growth should be such that the growth should be oriented towards the sector in which you do not have a comparative advantage. And for that, for a country like India, if that needs to happen, then you need to bring in capital from abroad, technology from abroad, so that you can focus on the commodity in which you do not have a comparative advantage, because that is the way that you can improve your terms of trade. So today we saw the definition of technological progress, and wherein we defined 3 different types of technological progress. One, the Higgs neutral technological progress, the other was the labor using technological progress, and the third was the capital using technological progress. And then we brought in international trade, and we saw that if the labor using technological progress takes place, then you would see a fall in the terms of trade for the country which has a comparative advantage in the production of labor intensive product, while if there is a capital using technological progress, we will see an improvement in terms of trade for the country which has a comparative advantage in the production of labor intensive product and a comparative disadvantage in the production of the capital intensive product. So tomorrow we will see further, we will now come back to our model where we have the structure of production in autarky, and we will discuss the proof of the Stopler-Samuelson and the Rybinski theorems. And then, as I said yesterday also, we are interested in finding out the relative prices, how relative prices are determined in an economy before trade, because that is how you define the relative prices and opportunity cost of producing a product. Thank you so much.